public. It's our first meeting down this way as we start to roll around the region over the coming months and years. So great to see us here at beautiful Tin Can Bay on a bowling green and the golf course out there. Lovely part of the world. I had the privilege of being at the Tin Can Bay School last night for their awards, and the thing I find as I get around the region is we've got exceptional educational institutions, and Tin Can Bay is doing a wonderful job for its residents down here. Wonderful place to be. I'll now hand over to Councillor Jensen for the acknowledgement of country.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We begin today by acknowledging the Kabi Kabi people, traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we meet today. We would like to acknowledge the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and their ongoing connection to land, sea and community. We pay respects to the elders past, present and emerging, and we also extend that respect to all people present.
Thank you. We'll now hand over to Pastor Dawn, who was came in on short notice, but from one of the local congregations here in the community, to say a few words of wisdom and pray. Thank you.
I just thought I'd start with a story. My father built the service station here at Tin Can Bay many years ago, so I sort of grew up partly here, and it's just beautiful. Welcome to the perfect part of Queensland. And I just got a story I just want to share. I won't be very long, but I've got a prayer meeting to attend to. So I found this story about a Native American Indian, and the legend goes that the chief of the tribe was on his deathbed. He was dying, and he had 3 sons. And he said, I want you to go to the Holy Mountain. I want you to find a gift and bring it back to me. And the one who I feel is the best gift, that will be the new chief, because he was dying. And so the boys go off, a couple of days, come back. And the first one comes back, he's got this beautiful, absolutely exquisite flower, and probably very rare, but very beautiful. And he brings it back to the chief. And the second one comes back, and he's got this jewel he found in the mountain, stunning jewel that he brought back for his father. And the third one comes back, and he said, I don't have anything. I don't have a gift for you. He said, because I got to the top of that mountain and I looked down into the valley below, he said, and I saw lush green pastures with a beautiful crystal spring flowing through it. And he said, that is a really lovely place for us to go as a tribe to live. And of course, the chief looked at him and he said, you will be the new chief, because he said, you've brought a gift of vision and of a better life. And I guess my challenge to you all is that just like Moses, when Moses came out of Egypt and he stood on that mountain and he looked over and he saw the valley and he saw the land of milk and honey, but he didn't get to enter into it. And I thought, you know what, there are many people that have come before you that have had these positions and have held these positions before you and brought us to the place where we are now. But Moses died on that mountain, and God said to Joshua, get up and take them in, the new generation. And I guess we're looking for new generations. We're looking for a future. We're looking for a hope. And it says in Jeremiah, and these are the words that God has for us. He said, I know the thoughts that I think towards you, thoughts of peace, not of evil, to give you a future and a hope. And you all think that you were elected because people voted you in. But you know what? My Bible says God selects leaders, and you are in leadership for such a time as this. The old generation is gone. You're here for the new generation to give a future and a hope to the people of this district and the whole district that you represent. And I thought, you know, it's just a privilege, I think. I know your job's not easy all the time, but I was just talking to this young man here, and he said he enjoys what he's doing. And I just really want to encourage you. I know that you can't please everybody, and you can't even try. But you know what? You can please God in the decisions that you make for the people of these communities that you serve. Let's pray. So, Father, I do pray. We do have a future. We do have a hope. And Father, you do want a peace over this whole land of ours. We've been through some very difficult situations lately with floods and before that with some fires. And Father, things happen, Lord God. But Lord, ultimately you are in control. So Father, I just commit each and every one of these people here to you to do your will, your way. Lord, they need your wisdom. They need to be led of the Holy Spirit. And I just want to thank you that you have positioned them for such a time as this, Lord. You have given them roles in leadership over this whole area. And Lord, I ask you, Lord, to bless them, to keep them, make your face shine upon them. Let your peace be upon them in all of the decisions that they have to make here today, that they would work together for the unity, Father, and the blessing of the communities that they serve. So, Lord, I just thank you. Let your will be done. Let your, Lord, way be a priority in the decisions that they make. And Lord God, I thank you for each and every one of them. Bless them and keep them in Jesus' name. Amen. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just all like to stand. We'll have 1 minute silence to remember particularly recently past residents of the region. Thank you. Section 1, item 1, disclosure of interests. Any interest disclosed, councillors? We'll start on the left with councillor Stewart. 7.2. And councillor Mill.
7.2 declarable.
Assuming councillor Fredman has probably been caught in peak hour traffic, running a little bit late at the moment. I'm assuming he will arrive soon. 7.2 for councillor Jensen. Any other disclosures of interest? No. Confirmation of minutes. Councillor Smurden to move. Councillor Jensen to second. All those in favour? Against? Carried. We have no petitions before us today. Item 5.1, council meeting dates for 2023. Hand over to Ms Hatch.
Mr Mayor and councillors. This report is about council meetings for 2023 and the dates. I'll take the report as being read. Are there any questions?
Councillor Mills.
I do have one. I noticed that we are moving around the region and the venues are to be advised. Is there any chance that we can actually have that advice a lot earlier than we're doing at the moment? Just because I'd like to be able to put that out to residents a lot earlier and fill up the gallery a little bit more in these remote areas.
Yes,
So is that planned?
we're planning through Mr Ware. We're finalising that pretty soon, and we'll put it out for consultation with everyone before we come to advise what the sites are.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Any other questions, councillors? Have a recommendation there before us. Someone to move. Councillor Stewart, someone to second. Councillor Polly, Councillor Stewart to speak.
It's good to know when we're going to meet, and it's good for the public to know when we're going to meet, and they're all welcome to come to our meetings. So I'm happy to move.
Councillor Polly.
I concur with Councillor Stewart's comments.
Two speakers for the recommendation. Any speakers against? Any other speakers for? Councillor Stewart to close. That will go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 5.2, Gympie Regional Council Area Annual Show Holiday 2023. Mr Hatch.
This report is to amend the date of the show holiday to the 19th of May 2023 for the Gympie Show. There was an error in the dates previously provided. They've been corrected now, and that is the date, the 19th of May, for us to go to the Industrial Relations Commission to get it gazetted. It hadn't been gazetted from the previous meeting, so we're just putting forward the correct date, and then we will get back in touch with the Industrial Relations Commission to gazette it.
Any questions, councillors? Councillor Devro?
Mayor Hartwig, I'm just wondering how this happens. It seems like a pretty basic thing. It's every year. Where did the error lie?
It was an administrative error in the information provided to council and then picked up by council and then now corrected.
Thank you.
Any other questions, councillors? Have a recommendation before us, someone to move. Councillor Polly, Councillor Smerd to second. Councillor Polly to speak.
I'm happy to log it in so we know what we're doing.
Councillor Smerd.
Yeah, I think it's important day for Gympie, the annual show, so support it. So happy to move.
Two speakers for the recommendation. Any speaker against? Any other speakers for? Councillor Polly to close.
Please proceed.
That will go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Q. Item 5.3, Audit and Risk Committee updates. That's for you again, Ms Hatch. Third time's the charm.
Yeah. So the Audit and Risk Committee update is provided in the report. I'll take the report as being read. There are a number of items in there. Has anyone got any questions on any of the items provided?
Any questions, councillors? Councillor Devro?
Mayor Hartwig, section 7, I'll go 8.2. Governance update. So the Audit and Risk Committee noted when in the meeting that portfolio councillors are actually a political tool, and not to the benefit of the organisation. I actually asked him to repeat that because I'd never heard it put like that before. Do you know how many councils in Queensland have portfolio councillors?
Should you notice?
I think it's less than half. What can I ask? Does that sound a correct assessment?
Yes, that I was at that meeting and that is what the advisor had said. And this issue was going to be raised at another workshop where we talked again about the purpose of the council portfolio meetings and the best way to make sure that they're addressed to ensure that the issues are raised in the right form and information exchange is in the correct method as well.
So my concern is that this organisation at the moment is, now I don't know the exact figures, somewhere between probably 50 and 100 staff short, depending on where the turnover sits. And as I say, I'm not giving a number and saying it's right. I don't know. And I've got to be clear on that or I'll get another OIA complaint. If our organisation is so short on staff and having so much difficulty in getting staff in, I question whether or not portfolio councillors are something we should be doing at the moment, because they drag staff away from the jobs that they're supposed to be doing. I don't think we have enough time for staff to be going to portfolio meetings.
I would just like to comment here, Councillor Devro. A little bit confused, given other motions that have been moved and other statements that have been made from yourself regarding all council attending portfolio meetings. The other thing, I would like to disagree with the statement that was made during the Audit and Risk Committee. Portfolio councillors don't need to make their role political. They can actually be there to inform the organisation and act in a productive manner. It's clearly up to the councillor or the councillors involved as to whether or not they choose to use that as a political tool for themselves. And as I've said many times, local government relies on goodwill. And I don't agree I mean, if you go to a committee system, you have far more cumbersome workloads for staff and just as I think a greater opportunity for politics to be played. So I don't believe that statement was actually correct, or I don't think the context of it was correct, and it probably would be wise to get some clarification if
Through
we
you,
could.
Mr. Mayor, that is that is the words that were said, but it's the definition of what is political, and political is not always a bad term. We were going to take this issue to a workshop and work through it again, because this councillor portfolio, how it was set up and how the meetings would be addressed, we're going to come again to the workshop for discussion. But the Audit and Risk Committee did have concerns about it going to a full meeting where we take notes, take minutes, and that was the point that they were raising at the Audit and Risk Committee.
Which is, if it goes that far, then it's the same as a committee system, basically different name, which is quite an onerous.
That's
Ah.
right.
Could we get some clarification on what the individual meant when they made that
Yeah.
statement?
Yeah, sure.
Be wonderful. We'll just go back to Councillor Devereux and then over to Councillor Stewart.
Oh, I'll let you.
We're going on a different topic or the same?
I was going somewhere else.
If I
Thank you.
In terms of the portfolios, in fact, I think it saves staff time in some ways because it gives them opportunity, and the portfolios I got, we've done this already since the changes, staff an opportunity to find where council's at, let's get an idea where council's at and also where the public's at in terms of an issue. And if political means a controversial issue, then it's appropriate for staff at least to get some sort of feedback. That's certainly political. It's a good thing. In terms of trying to wheedle deals, it's not a good thing. To me, it's just getting a feel for how things are, and I think it actually saves staff time.
Is there any other comments from councillors in relation to that point that Councillor Devereux raised? Councillor Milne?
Yeah, I tend to agree. The councillor portfolio policy is, you could say political, because we are political sitting around this room. And I see our roles as a conduit between the community and council. And by having those aligned portfolios, people know where to go, and you can actually take that information and give it back. It's not all about these meetings that we go to per se. It's about having those lines of communication. It's also those understandings of those long-term strategies as well, which is what our role is. It's not the nitty-gritty of how things are done. And I think sometimes people get confused in that, especially in the public, of we have control over the operations, but it's not. It's that long-term vision, strategic, make sure it's actually got to go somewhere. So I see where the risk is if we do go down that full line where they're trying to make that point. And I did actually have that highlighted in the out of the report. So.
Also, just to note that the vacancies that we have in the organisation are mainly in areas that we would deal with as part of our portfolio meetings. So, drain on resources in that area under the current system we have is not significant. Councillor Devereux?
Mayor Hartwig, I will beg to differ. I mean, we're talking about people that are often directors in management that are there, and we're taking them away from their jobs, which is to manage those people. So for me, I was shocked. I'll be honest. I was shocked when he said it, and I went back to it at the meeting to get him to restate what he said and confirm that that's what he meant. It's in the report anyway. It's just not as probably clearly stated as what I've just said it there, but I thought it was something that we should all be aware of, because then we can make a decision around it. So thank you. If everyone finished with that, I'll go to my next point, please.
Yes.
Mayor Hartwig, section 7.1, risk management and insurance update. Mayor Hartwig, through Mayor Hartwig, how many, do we have records of how many insurance claims are made against council and rejected?
Would have, but I would have to take that on notice.
If you could, please. I've had several people contact me stating they've been asked to fill out a form, provide 2 quotes, provide additional evidence proving that they were at the place at a certain time, and basically put through the ringer for several weeks, months. And then ultimately, There's a bit of legislation when it comes to roads and stuff like that. What legislation is that?
Yeah, there's legislation that determines that if there's a maintenance program in place, that the council is doing all it can to maintain the roads as best as they can.
So, first of all, the latest one, I don't think they've got to that point yet. But having to prove they were on a road when they were hit by a stone, by a bit of machinery.
Yes, I'm not sure. I think that the topic you're talking about, we can discuss. I'm not sure how that relates to item 7.1 there.
Well, okay, I'll get into my questions. But I had to set the groundwork first, I thought.
You can tend to sort of head off into the bush, and if we can keep it on topic.
Why don't we bring that bit of legislation up initially instead of making people jump through all the hoops?
So
If it-
yeah,
sorry.
through you, Mr. Mayor, there is a process involved in which people make claims for any type of damage to whatever they consider necessary. So anyone can write in a complaint, but it goes through the process of the officer making a determination, goes through the manager, and they make a determination, and then anyone who's not happy with that process can go to the through an administrative action complaint, which is dealt through the governance team. And then if they're not happy with that complaint, then they go through to the Ombudsman's office. Now, because there has been a lot of damage to roads in the region, which we've discussed openly about, there is maintenance issues and delays, and I think that's where, even though there is maintenance work happening at the time, people still consider that a lot of these things should be done a lot quicker than they are in damage. That's just an example. But anyone who's not happy with any complaints, they can make an administrative action complaint or go to the Ombudsman's office.
Through the mayor, that's not my question. My question is, why aren't we telling people about this bit of legislation that comes in the very last letter? Why aren't we telling them that up front? Is it written on the...
Yes, from the letters I've seen, it is in the first notice that is sent to them, and I will go back and check and confirm. But any letter that I've seen through any administrative action complaints, there is the legislation that is quoted.
I have asked through Mayor Hartwig, I have asked in the past for information on how much it costs council to process an insurance claim. I still haven't got that back. Do you know how much that would be?
I will take that on notice too, but if there's a question, it should be in our actions item to come back to you with that information. How
I
long
don't think it
ago
was at a
that?
meeting. I
Beg your
think,
pardon?
I don't think it was at a meeting.
So
I'm not
was the
sure.
councillor request information? Yeah, I'll chase that up.
If you could, thank you.
I think it's a hard one to understand. You know, if it's a damage to a tyre is going to be very different to damage to a building. I mean, it's sort of like how long's a piece of string, depending on the size of the claim and the issues that are involved will determine the cost. And part of discussion as an organisation that I know has been going on is evaluating the cost to the organisation versus the cost to repair damage or the cost to meet the claim. And I think there's probably been a bit of a lack of understanding there that spending a couple of $1,000s in staff time to resolve instead of resolving a $500 issue isn't actually a good outcome anyway. So I know there is discussions at the executive level around that, making changes for that in the future. Councillor Devereux?
Mayor Hartwig, just on that, my concern is that our residents are being made to feel like they're doing something wrong when they're not with the current system. That's my main concern. They actually feel like I'm not being believed, I'm being treated like I'm doing the wrong thing. So that's my concern. Our corporate plan says empathy for our residents, and I really think this is one area that we could do better. Thank you.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Pollard?
Yes, 11 point, I think it's, I assume I had a question for the acting CEO, he's not here. But I just wanted some commentary around, it says that the committee noted the very high risk projects. Okay, yeah, that happens, but we need to move that to lower risk. So let's just try and understand, because using the analogy of workplace health and safety, you do have high risk activities. You can never reduce the height of that risk, but you manage around that. So it just seemed to be saying we need to get away from these high risk things and go to low risk. But I suppose I was a little bit confused about that whole comment. So some commentary around that would have been.
They might have been talking about mitigating risk to bring it down to a lower risk. Because if you're working in confined spaces or confined spaces, a job like that, it is a high risk,
Yeah.
but you can lower that risk by appropriate processes and other safety equipment. But maybe something we can get some clarification on. Great.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Essentially, that comment relates to some of the projects that are underway, such as the ERP.
Yep.
And the installation and adoption of a new ERP. There are some significant risks in terms of time and cost and management of that process. And there's got to be an ongoing review of those risks. And as you referred to, undertaking mitigation treatment to see where we can adjust the actions that we're taking or the functions that we're undertaking and the timing of those functions to ensure that we reduce that risk level overall. And that's what that comment is essentially referring to. But it's also referring to the fact that council has a really high order of major projects on the go at the moment. There's a lot of pressure and we need to prioritise the work that we are doing to ensure that we don't fall over at some place down the track. And it's again, going back to mitigating the risks. That's all that comment referred to.
Thank you.
Councillor Stewart.
Got a number of items, I think, some of them answered. 5.1, external audit update. It's just our audit deadline's been extended to the end of the year. And that hopefully final is ready by the 15th of December. Does that mean we're going to have an additional meeting this year or can I?
We do have another audit risk committee. Meeting coming up.
So I guess what I'm asking is, this refers to the audit and the. Let me read it. It's expected the committee will be in position to consider the final statements from the next meeting on the 15th of December to recommend them to council for signing to meet the deadline. Deadline is 31st of December. This meeting is 15th of December. So between then and the 31st, supposedly there's got to be a council meeting. Is that a right reading of what that says?
That is, through you, Mr. Mayor, that is the right reading.
So we've got to.
So, Councillor Stewart is asking the question, do we intend to have another meeting or will things be done in a timely fashion to adhere to council?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll confirm, but my belief is that there may be, that matter will be addressed by the end of the year because there's legislative timeframes around it, and how that's done either through, if we meet the timeframe or there needs to be a flying minute or another meeting, I will confirm with the CEO. That is the right reading of that.
Going to the next item, Councillor Stewart.
It gets back to the high risk things at 6.1. And it says the committee requested an update spreadsheet to be circulated. Committee members, in terms of long-standing high risk. I'm not too sure what high risk matters are being referred to. Directly, I don't necessarily need to know now, but are they ones that we are already aware of? And should council also be privy to what's in the proposed spreadsheet so that we're aware of what risks council's?
That's really you, Mr. Mayor. That is the internal audits sheet is a high priority for the teams to be looking at the moment to making sure they're addressing them. But the councillors are provided with the strategic risk register at the strategic level. These lists are more about operational matters and high risks for those teams rather than strategic risk register as well. But it's an operational matter.
Councillor
Matters.
Mayor Hartwig, I've already had contact with the acting CEO, David Lewis, about that report coming out to councillors, and I've been assured it will. Can I get an assurance from you?
Through you, Ms. Mayor, I'm sure I will chase it up.
Thank you very much, because councillors are mentioned on it. So I thought, and I've sent that out to councillors, and I think it's something that we need to be aware of, and I would like councillors to have read it. So thank you. Good.
That's a one-line statement on the
Yes, it
strategic
is.
plan. Yes. On the screen.
Councillor Stewart, next.
6.2, just noting it notes issues with our project management. I think on the 6.5 years that we've been on council, it's been an issue. It would be good to see as a focus, I guess, of the executive team that we improve our project management. It's just, I guess, a statement. This is an issue that council's faced for many years. Until we fix up that project management process, we're not going to be able to do projects well. I think that's about it.
Any other questions, councillors? Have some recommendations there before us. Someone to move. Councillor Fredman, someone to second. Councillor Devereux, Councillor Fredman to speak.
Good thing about an audit committee is it's independent. And they can say what they want, basically. And there's a lot of value in what outside people say. I do think that we need to think closely about 8.2, the portfolio meetings. From my observation, it is very easy for such meetings, whether they be formal or informal, to delve into operational matters. And as I've said before, as one who's had a disagreement with the OIA about this matter myself, all I can say is that we need to be vigilant because the portfolio system does open up a very real risk of councillors getting involved in operational matters. Apart from that, someone looking over our shoulder, and that's good.
Councillor Devereux.
Yeah, I find being on the Audit Risk Committee to be very helpful, and their information I find is without prejudice, which I like. Thank you.
Two speakers for the recommendation, any speakers against, any other speakers for. Councillor Fredman to close.
Nothing really.
That will go to vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 5.4, notified motion and acknowledgement of emails. I'll hand over to Councillor Devereux.
I'll take it as read this time. I think there's enough people around the table that understand why this is important. So if you've got questions for the Mayor.
Any questions, councillors? Councillor Poles?
First question to the, could you not put a read receipt on you when you send an email so you know they've read it?
I ask for an acknowledgement through the Mayor.
Yep.
Hartwig. I ask for an acknowledgement because I've had instances where I've gone back and been told they missed it. And I have stuff outstanding for quite some time. It's just like, I don't want to throw anyone under the bus with this, but there's been enough instances that I want to have something come back so I know for a fact it's been read and can be actioned.
If I may ask a further question then, because you had two parts. You want to know that, acknowledge it.
Yep.
But I understood it, you wanted a brief statement to know that it's been sent to the right person, or this is the kind of action I'm going to take on this. Acknowledgement's one thing, then you wanted
Yes.
a bit of.
To know that something's happened.
So yeah, there's two parts to that.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Mill?
Oh, no, Councillor Fredman first. Go ahead.
By a hair, I
I didn't even.
I take offence, Mr. Chairman, at that comment. Just the third dot point in this motion, the CEO is to inform the council what action is to be taken. Given what I suspect is currently the situation with staff shortages, I'm assuming the CEO can say, we'll investigate it as time and staff permit. And that's fine by me. What does this achieve? I'm not quite sure, because if I was the CEO and I was short of staff and I had a long list of things to do, including questions from a councillor who don't have the resources for, that's what I would say. Would that be acceptable?
Councillor Devereux?
Mayor Hartwig. I've sat here a number of times, Councillor Fredman, where you've said, over to staff, leave it to staff. This is staff's role, is to answer councillor questions. I don't think that the public would expect their councillors to sit here and not ask questions. simply because they're worried they'll take up staff time. If there's a question that needs to be asked or that a councillor feels need to be asked, we have every right to put it forward. I just want to know that it's been looked at and that an idea, if it's going to be a while, they can extend it out to 20 days, 20 working days. That's in that came through the Belcarra 2 reforms. So I've had one matter go, I wasn't going to get into things. I've had one matter going since April where I asked to see a report and I was told I couldn't have it. So I went to the LGAQ and they said I could. So I forwarded that on and I said another reminder. And I mean, this is over the months. I mentioned it in person. I do try to stay out of the offices because I don't want to risk saying something. I'd rather have it in writing that someone can misconstrue. And even now, I'm not even sure that I've got the right document. So I'm going to have to go back and have another look at that. Yeah, so my job and our role as councillors is to make sure that we're making the right decisions, and asking questions is part of that. Being short on staff is extremely unfortunate, and it's not just this council, but I will not be told I can't ask questions when it's legislatively I absolutely can.
Mr Mayor, my question was about time of response,
I answered
time
that.
of final response. It wasn't about the right to ask questions. I wish that to go on record.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Mill?
I do. In the report that you wrote, you've got that you find that non-receipt is like disrespectful and irksome, which is irritating and annoying. So is this a motion that has been born out of frustration from yourself more than actually a deficit in process that we have within council? Because I've had the actual complete opposite. I've had some struggles trying to get information. I filled out the correct forms, paperwork. Yes, that is actually legislated by time frame. Not every single little question is covered by that time frame. It's those big things that you want to have that extra information that's not available. I know I use a CRM system more than I do the CEO system because he is a busy man and he has an organisation to run. So every little question doesn't have to go to the CEO. It's those really big, meaty, or you don't know where it should go questions. But I don't see how the system is this is going to make a system better. I think it's going to make a system more cumbersome. So that's my question. Is it a big deficit in our processes? I don't think there is. I think there's a massive improvement this year.
Councillor Devereux?
Mayor Hartwig, Councillor Milne, I just explained that I've had something going on since April. I don't know how else to put that I've had some issues. I actually put this motion up and then withdrew it because there was a marked improvement. Okay, and then it's fallen off again, and so that's why it's up. I just want to have the proper. I want it in place so that I know things are being looked at, because otherwise I sit here and I think I've got that in there. That's fine. That's going to be looked at, and then I get told, oh, I don't know. I'm thinking about it, or it's whatever. There's been a few different instances. I'm not just. I really don't want to get into the specifics of it more than what I've already been drawn out with. But yeah, it's born out of frustration a bit, absolutely. And okay. We have a variety of ways that we can ask for information at the moment. Okay, and in the opposite comments, it says the CEO request process is currently being reviewed. That's great. We've got the councillor portal. I just didn't agree with the councillor comment. I was going to say this in my final comments. I've got a question, Mayor Hartwig, if I could. Other councils in Queensland, do they have the portal process?
I believe there are other councils that have the portal process, but I would have to go and check that. Now, depending on under the Local Government Act, the council sets up administrative procedures for that council, for that to be efficient and effective in that council and the resources that that council has. And at the moment, the CRM portal is what's used, because then you do get acknowledgement, you do get a number, you do get to see it.
No.
Okay.
Excuse me, if I could, please. I'm sorry to interrupt you. That is one of the problems with it. We don't get anything. If we don't take a screenshot of the portal, it's gone forever.
Yes.
And I've asked if we can have an email sent to us, but it doesn't happen.
Yeah,
I'll
so-
get to-
So through you, Mr. Mayor, we are undergoing a process of that, undergoing a review of that process, but it is captured and it is actually recorded in a report that will come to council on how those matters are being dealt with. So we are trying to improve that process to you. And in any request that is made of the CEO to council under legislation, we are reviewing all that Division 5 and making sure that it's efficient and effective and meets the purpose of this council, not any other council who may have better systems, your ICT processes and implementing change. That is what we'll all be taking into account to get the best service for you, for the members of the community, in getting information to you for your functions of your duties.
Councillor Jensen.
I thought the portal was broken. We started
Use it every day.
No, I did. Well, the same thing. I've put in heaps of requests and asked, feedback to councillor, or I normally just say councillor only, and haven't received anything at all. So I stopped using it a long time ago. Just
So through you, Mr. Mayor, we'll take that on notice and do a review of councillor Jensen's requests.
Councillor Stewart.
I'd back up councillor Jensen in that. Put in, no, it's really,
say it louder.
that council is being told, and we're not told, but often the work's done anyway. Might be just putting in something to fix a pothole, and you happen to drive along the road and know it's been fixed, but you've never been told. So it is closing that loop in some. But I think that's a different issue to this. I just think this is superfluous. Put processes in place that yes, they need fixing, but they need improving. And there are times when I've written to directors because I haven't had a response to whatever after, and usually then gets responded to. So I mean, I get frustrated too sometimes by the time process, but I don't see how this helps. I think it's just.
Any other questions, councillors? We have a recommendation there before us. You've
Any
got
other questions? I've got my hand up.
You've got questions,
Yes.
but you're the mover.
Your own thing.
Okay, can I ask a question?
You're asking questions of
No,
yourself.
no, it's okay. Normally I ask questions of staff.
I know, but they have a recommendation that we're asking about. You're moving this
Okay.
recommendation.
Yep.
So the question is, do the councillors have any questions for you?
Okay.
There's no other questions, councillors? We have a recommendation there before us. Moved by councillor Devereux. Someone second? Councillor Jensen. Councillor Devereux to speak.
1 second. Okay. There was no dedicated officer prior to the previous CEO setting one up. Something which was council at this table attempted to frame as against legislation or something. The portal.
Sorry, councillor Devereux, what relevance does that statement have? You're casting aspersions upon other councillors. And I'm not sure what facts you have or what evidence you said to even justify a statement like that brings the other people in this room into disrepute. Will you withdraw the comment?
Yeah, sure. Yes, Mayor Hartwig. There are issues at the moment that I find when it comes to getting answers. And I'm uncomfortable talking to staff in person. So all I'm trying to get through is to get a response. The portal does not give us a record unless we take a snapshot. Emailing through the CEO is great. All he has to do is pass it on to the right people. All I want is an acknowledgement, and I've asked for an acknowledgement and not had one come back. And I've had to ask again. Okay, I've got major issues in getting information. I will say, which is what I was going to say with the roads, that is one area that I do get answers when I put a portfolio portal in. I'd encourage, I know that I'm not the only one who's got these issues because I do speak to people around the table. I'd encourage everyone to back this. Thank you.
Councillor Jensen.
I think there's been enough said, but it's simple. It's simple to acknowledge an email. Read receipts you can ignore and say no. So yeah, you can just, I don't think it's a big ask because other systems are not working unless we fix the Stargate. It's a no-brainer.
2 speakers for the recommendation. Any speakers against? Councillor Smeaton.
Personally, I don't see the need for this motion. As far as I'm concerned, I've never had a problem. But then I suppose my number of emails is nowhere near as much as Councillor Rose. Maybe I'm an old-fashioned councillor and I tend to go to the block and ask the questions rather than, just can't see the need for this motion.
Speak against the recommendation. Any other speakers for? Any other speakers against? Councillor Polly.
I acknowledge the councillors who have a problem with it. Like Councillor Smeaton, I don't seem to have an issue. Maybe I don't ask enough questions or hard enough questions, but as it stands with this, I'm against this recommendation because I'm not sure where it's leading, but I would actually be for pushing this idea to a workshop. I'd like to thrash it out a bit more, but as it stands, I don't like what it says, but I like the intent and I like where it's going. So if I don't think it's very well thought out and I don't know what it's going to lead to. I suppose it's for me to say yes to it. It's my problem.
Speaker against. Any other speakers for? Any other speakers against? Councillor Stewart and then Councillor Waldock.
I mean, as I said before, I've had some issues with feedback. Generally speaking, when I send an email to the CEO, I do get a response saying, or I get copied into a response, which is to a director or whatever saying, can you deal with this? To me, that's fine. I just don't see the need at the moment. And given that, as Ms. Hart just said, that they're working through the whole process of how to do council requests and whatever, I just don't think there's a need at the moment. Yes, we do need things acknowledged. We do think things dealt with, but I don't see what this achieves. To me, it's a bit demeaning.
Councillor Waldock.
Through the chair, I have an issue with dot 3, as Councillor Fredman pointed out. The CEO is to inform the council of what action is to be taken right at the time of the request of the receipt. I don't think that's possible. Immediately, exactly what's going to happen. It does take time. Whether and as Councillor Polly pointed out, the intent is right. I agree with that. I like it. It's just that number 3 is sort of niggling me, and whether we amend it or
Too late to amend.
it is. Yeah. Okay.
So the chair, if we voted, or if this motion doesn't get up, will it be just dropped, or will it come back to us?
Well, I think
Is more my concern.
It will come back as part of the discussion and review of the current processes.
Well, that's fine. That's all I know.
So we've had speakers against and for. Are there any other speakers either for or against in relation to the matter? Councillor Mill.
Against. I feel that this will be added workload to the CEO, who's under high amount of pressure at the moment as it is. There are systems reviewed. I have had issues and I have brought them up through the CRM system for councillors, which I think we should be utilising more than going to the CEO. That's some really high level strategic stuff. Legislation does say, yes, there are timeframes, but they are for information that's relevant to what decision makers we need to know, or for, and when we've got systems through our portfolio policy at the moment to get certain bits of information straight direct. But it's not to get updates on things that are coming back to us and things like that before they're coming back. I see it wasting of time, and it is time pressure. You've even brought it up yourself. We're under pressure for time and staffing and things like that. So I don't feel that this motion is going to make anything better. I probably think it's going to make things worse. So I am not for this. But I do understand there is an intent here. We need to get our systems better. and I'm confident that we'll have this thrashed out at a workshop and we'll have some better systems in place. But I'm happy with the systems that we've got at the moment, considering our situation. So sorry, I'm against.
Any other speakers for or against? Will be speaking against the motion. I raised a number of times with our acting CEO in relation to the failure to get back to councillors, and part of the process that Ms Hatcher's going through is to address that and develop those communication lines. The issue I have with this is the number of emails that come through that are trivial in nature and don't require instant action or need to take a couple of days to actually decipher what the content is relates to and how it's actually part of council business. This is open to abuse, and you know, it part of local government requires goodwill and professionalism, and understanding that that systems may be in place or councillors may have rights doesn't mean that they can be abused and held against people. And this here is open to abuse the way it sits. It's a cumbersome process that throws extra work at a CEO with little gain, and I'm having seen enough from the inside. I'm not comfortable with this process being endorsed at all. Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Devereux to close.
Thank you, Mayor Hartwig. In closing, I would like to say I don't see how it can be open to abuse when all that's asked is for acknowledgement of receipt of any correspondence from any councillor, that the CEO answer correspondence directed to him, regardless of other correspondence, which is received from councillors, which had to do with councillors around this table, one in particular, answering where the question was directed to be answered by the organisation. The final point, CEO is to inform councillor what actions to be taken with the email request, is simply to say, where is it going to be sent? Not to give an answer straight away on what's going to what's going to happen with the question, or what to answer the question. It's to say, acknowledge your receipt, it's gone to this director or this person, they can handle it. I'm glad people around the table are acknowledging they're not having issues. I am surprised by it because I've heard from certain councillors around the table that they
Councillor
are.
Devereux, that's incorrect. There are a number of councillors said that they've had issues with the portal system. So your statement that they're not,
With
being
respect,
reflective of a general statement of the council is not a fair representation of the evidence or the statements that were made.
I will correct that then to emails.
There are some councillors that have said they haven't got an issue, but there are other councillors that said they've had some challenges with it. And your statement wasn't reflective of what councillors had said.
As I went on to say, in private, I have heard from a number of councillors around this table that
But
they
Councillor
are.
Devereux,
So
that statement in itself is not an appropriate way to conduct yourselves.
Okay.
We've
I retract it.
all had
With respect.
conversations in private, and they're not.
Yeah,
not
it
to
just
be discussed
surprises
here.
me, that's all. So that's all. I don't have anything else to offer.
With that, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Devereux, Councillor Jensen, against? Councillor Stewart, Councillor Polly, Councillor Waldock, Councillor Smurden, Councillor Hartwig, Councillor Hill, and Councillor Fredman. Motion is defeated. Move on to the next item, item 6.1, October finance report. Okay. I'll hand over to Mr. Douglas, thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I take that the report is read and I open it up to any questions.
Any questions, councillors? Monthly report, always get great information from finance. Councillor Smith.
Thanks, Harry. I'm just wondering, I'd be told what the actual annual budget was for Grenville Road maintenance. How much of that budget has been spent up?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll need to take that question on note.
I actually sent an email to.
I think those staff are away.
Yeah, right. It's just that
So yeah, they're getting the numbers and they'll take that on notice. And report back.
Thank you.
Any other questions, councillors? Right, we have a recommendation there before us. Someone to move? Councillor Milne, someone to second? Councillor Stewart, Councillor Milne to speak?
Financial reporting ledgers, if we have to have it every month. I know the team work really hard to make sure they give us information that we require to make sure that we're on time and on track. I did, yeah. I mean, there's not much to say in here. We are tracking quite well. Yeah, we need to crack along because we do have a lot of work to do this year. And I think there's going to be some variables coming up due to the flood recovery works that are going to come in and out. So it's probably going to be a flexible budget because of that. And it's unfortunate maybe some of our other capital works have to be pushed out, but flood recovery is probably our highest priority. And we're looking at gravel roads, potholes, sealed roads, culverts. It's all going to have to come in here. So it's very interesting financial reporting for the rest of the financial year.
Councillor Stewart?
Just to, Mr Mayor, emphasise what Councillor Milne said, we've got a nice little surplus at the moment, but that's largely due to payments for operational works last financial year due to floods. So that's just an example where finances are a bit out of whack because of extra payments that were for last year for floods. So thank you for the update, and I'm happy to move.
2 speakers for the recommendation. Any speakers against? Any other speakers for? Councillor Milne to close.
Happy to go to the vote.
With that, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 6.2, Panel Report October 2022. Again.
Through Mr Mayor, I take that the report has been read and I open it up for any questions.
Any questions, councillors? Councillor Polly?
I'm just trying to follow my question here. Somewhere, just trying to understand through Mayor, the federal government funding that was being used to prop up my non-election promise has been pulled, but still proceeding with that?
We have funding for a number of stages of Southside Sewer.
Okay.
I believe from different sources. Do you have
Through
any
you,
further
Mr Mayor,
information, Mr. McGann?
Councillor Polly may be referring to the LRCI funding, the federal funding
Yes.
that we brought to council probably 2 or 3 meetings before, and highlighted at a high level the potential packages that will come from that in about circa $3 million federal funding, as well as the Excelsior Road project. So that came to council probably 2 or 3 months ago. So if you're referring that to Councillor Polly, so that's still in our capital delivery program, but subject to us working around some of our capital delivery from our own councillor capital funding, as well as other funding opportunities that have come through, as Mr Mayor said, through the Southside Sewerage grant funding, as well as we've got insurance works to do. We've got a whole number of funding opportunities to deliver capital works, including that federal funding.
Excellent.
Any other questions, councillors?
Oh, just a
Councillor
small
Milne.
one, just a pre-qualified support. That's just going to really help streamline and get this recovery works happening quicker, isn't it? Instead of having to go out and like tender for everything else, you can just go and pick off the list through procurement processes.
So through you, Mr Mayor, Councillor Milne's correct. So the major works expression of interest that's been packaged there has been completed. We've broken that down into smaller categories so that in order for us to deliver future packages, which are currently being assessed from the Rackers pickup and a whole lot of work that CRC have been doing on our behalf. So yes, that will increase our capability of delivering our capital works for those packages in the near future.
Any other questions, councillors? Recommendation there before us. We'll do 2. We've got 2, so we'll do them separately. The first one there, that council receive and note the minutes of the panel meeting, number 66, 27th of October 2022. Someone to move? Councillor Stewart and Councillor Polly the second. Councillor Stewart to speak.
Oh, it's good to know what's happening with regards to procurement, so thank you for the report.
Councillor Polly?
it's good to see that despite the financial uncertainties, the council through the procurement panel is pressing on its plans.
Two speakers for the recommendation. Any speakers against? Any other speakers for? Councillor Stewart to close.
Nothing further to add.
We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. The second recommendation. Councillor Jensen, we just get, if one of the staff members could get Councillor Jensen, please. We have to do the Heimlich manoeuvre.
Thank you.
The second recommendation there, that council resolved to establish the register of pre-qualified suppliers for DAFA construction services. Councillor Smerd to move, Councillor Milne to second.
I think it's a good move on council's part, and if it speeding gets our response to both repair and that sort of thing, it's in the right direction. So maybe.
Councillor Milne.
I'd just like to echo that it is a good move. I know there's community angst out there that these flood damage repairs are taking some time. So anything to speed that process up. I know funding's a big handbrake, but as soon as we get the money, if we can roll it out, spend it and get the works done, it's a good thing. So I'm happy to have this resupply list for these votes.
Two speakers for the recommendation. Any speakers against? Any other speakers for? Councillor Smerd to close. Vote. All those in favour? Against? Yes, I saw your hand go up. Carried. Thank you unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen. We've got item 6.3 now, Flood Recovery Committee.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I take that the report is read and I open it up for any questions.
Any questions, councillors? Councillor Stewart.
I know it's probably the impossible question, but as someone who drives over flood damaged roads every day, two different ones or several, and some of the occasional feedback I get from the community is just frustrating how long it's taking to get these roads properly repaired. And do we have any idea of when we might actually get the ticket approval from the state government to move ahead with grant funding?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to, this is there's quite a deal of information here that I can share with you, specifically with Councillor Stewart. I think you'd be pleased to know that the Eastern Roads Reaper Package 1 is currently with council, and we have to submit that in late November to QRA. QRA are experiencing some challenges. As you know, John Morris has left the organisation, and he has a very suitable replacement who's just finding his feet around the work that John did, and has been working with council for quite some time around some of our QRA and disaster management funding. So specifically with the Eastern Roads Reaper Package 1, so hopefully that'll be submitted through to QRA at the end of November. It may take 4 to 6 weeks for them to give us an approval. There is some process around their assessment of our Reaper packages when we submit them. And that's an ongoing process that we work with QRA in order to get that package finalised. Once that's then finalised, then we can move through the procurement phase, of which you've just acknowledged that through our major contract partners, we can put that to market. So it is a process, and I do appreciate that the community are experiencing some difficulties around some of our roads and drainage works that need to be completed, but that's the process we need to follow. We do have packages identified through the CRC piece of work, and I think there's currently we've developed 20 different packages. We're currently at Reaper Package 2. And that includes also some of the betterment funding projects that the goalposts have changed slightly 2 or 3 times about how we present those betterment packages, such as Lawson Street, in the sense that we originally we were advised that they would be considered as separate packages, betterment packages, but we now believe, or we've now been told that they need to be submitted with the Reaper packages. So the process has changed slightly, and I guess QRA went through that themselves, given that there's a whole number of different councils across this region, or across South East Queensland, affected by disaster events. But certainly we're working very closely with them, as we are with CRC, who's developing those Reaper packages on our behalf.
Councillor Stewart.
Mr. Mayor, can I just be reminded what CRC is?
CRC is our contract partner who's doing all our engineering assessments on our behalf. So they've done quite a bit of work with us. They were put in place 3 months ago, Councillor Fredman, if you correct me if my memory's correct. So they are working, they're a local engineering firm working with us to develop our REPA packages on our behalf. That'll be submitted through council through into the Mars portal for QRA assessment.
Councillor Smoot.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. McGarn, you mentioned Maudsley Street at Mary. So what's the current status on that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, please bear with me, Councillor Smurden. The Maudsley Street REPA package 1 was submitted to council on the 2nd of September. And that's currently with the manager of capital delivery to assess that package. And we'll then submit that through to QRA for their consideration.
So it hasn't even been submitted.
It may have done that. That report is a few days old, so it may have not have been done at this point in time. We're still working through the process of betterment packages in consultation with our REPA package submissions.
Another point of frustration, as you know, with me is that we are doing our packages on the roads that are flood affected, and then we're actually driving past other roads that go off those roads and not doing anything, which creates quite a bit of flack for me from residents who think, you know, got the gang there doing the work, and then we move on somewhere else and do nothing on the side roads. I'm just wondering if that has been looked at as to a solution. Or
Is there any consolidation between REPA funded works and business as usual works?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, that's something we have discussed at length about how we continue to do some of our BAU works. To obviously roads are going to deteriorate across the next 2 to 3 years, regardless of how much REPA package work we do. We haven't come to a solution about how we may or may not integrate some of those works at this point in time. This is only our first REPA package. We've done one road, Greendale Road. That's the first.
roads actually. You've done Glen Echo as well.
My understanding is Glen Echo has only done as BAU, hasn't done as a REPA package.
Well, that's one of the roads where about 4 or 5 side roads.
Yeah.
That just goes right past.
Yeah, but that's probably the principal road to service that area, I would imagine.
Yeah, the other roads were in the same condition.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, I can't answer the condition of those roads. I've been down Glen Echo about 2 weeks ago, and they put that into a good condition for that to service probably some of those other less trafficable roads, if you like. But certainly we are working through what BAU looks like, because around 3% of our road network, some figure around that, hasn't been affected by the flood damage work. So we need to be able to integrate our BAU works along with our REPA package works, and we don't have a suitable solution for that at this point in time. But we're very conscious of it, and we should develop a process through in the next months.
I just think it makes economic sense to actually do, you know, if you're going to do one road and you drive past the other ones, it's just,
Yeah. And part of it is.
Mr. McGinn, if I can just interrupt, what are the restraints in terms of, if we haven't found a solution to that, what are the restraints, either inhibiting a solution or inhibiting to blend the REPA and the business as usual together?
Well, principally more so the focus is on doing the REPA package works, because obviously with 20 packages to deliver in 24 months, it's a priority piece of work. Part of the other issue we need to work through is how we actually allocate our costs from REPA packages where we might go and do a side road under BAU. And I don't believe we've worked through that model sufficiently at this point in time to be able to then come back to you and accurately report on the cost of what BAU was and what we're doing as far as REPA package works go, so that we're successful when we submit our claims to QRA to get the revenue from those works. So we need to do more work with the finance team around how we manage that as well.
So it comes down to invoicing, is that what you're saying?
No, not necessarily. It's more comes down to priority of doing those REPA package works that substantial works in order to provide safe road networks. More so.
I think we all understand, and even at a state level, they understand that given the size of the damage to the road network, we're not going to be able to finalise it within the 2-year timeframe. I think both at the political and the bureaucratic side of the state government, there's an understanding of that. And I think it's just acceptance that there's going to need to be some flexibility around that. I mean, I think it would be a priority, particularly for our ratepayers, but also for our organisation and finances, to try to blend that business as usual together, because, you know, simply using REPA state money to run and fix up a road that was damaged by the flood, but not attending to other issues that are part of business as usual. You know, you've got the equipment there, utilised and put there by state funding. It actually is a good economic outcome for our organisation to use that movement under the REPA to do some other areas before we move on to another project. And we're not going to finish the 20 packages in 2 years. So I'm concerned that, you know, focusing solely on REPA and ticking that over will exacerbate other problems, and particularly for staff. I mean, they're the ones at the front line, you know, the grader crews, and that are the ones that get people pull over and say, you know, why haven't you done this and why haven't you done that? I mean, we also need to consider them and look to protect them and work with a process that delivers an outcome that is not only financially beneficial, but it deals with the common sense, practical application of what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, it is a difficult balance, because obviously people with significantly more damaged roads that are repairable under REPA would like those done as soon as possible. But it's also the people that are less affected by it that probably won't have a REPA package on that road, or it's further down on the priority list. They want their roads brought up to a better standard as well. And on top of that, we have some of what we've talked about before, some of our resourcing issues, where we may operationally form crews up. We have a 2-week program at any one point in time. We have absenteeism, or people might fall unwell, whatever. Then we're on a daily basis reorganising those crews, anywhere between 16 and 22 crews daily. So essentially, that crew, if it's missing an operator for a particular piece of equipment, then that piece of work gets deferred or replanned or rescheduled for another time. So it's a difficult balance to get both BAU and REPA package works done, as well as manage our operational crews with the plant and equipment that we have. One of the other difficulties we have too, and forecasting going forward for our capital program, as well as our REPA package works and BAU works, is resources, particularly gravels, being forecast is going to be particularly difficult next year to obtain. So again, we'd probably have some more constraints around there, how we resource sufficient materials in order to do some of the works that have been programmed and scheduled. Sorry?
Mount Olive, our quarry. Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Smerd, and then Councillor Polly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's not only staff that are on the front line, it's also councillors. I'll make that little point. But anyway,
Only those
I'm not-
roads.
I understand the situation we're in, Mr. McGowan, but you know, I understand the position our residents are in as well. And just going on that one statement you made, it's going to be 24 months before we actually do any maintenance on other gravel roads after we do the REPA packages. Is that
No, just through you, Mr. Mayor, that's not correct. We will still do BAU works, but our focus at the moment is the recent approval that we have to do the REPA package works. So that started probably about 4 months ago. So we haven't, 4 weeks ago, we haven't worked through how we integrate the REPA and the BAU works together, given the resourcing and the crew allocations that we currently have. Because essentially it is additional work to what we'd normally do to just BAU. It's the first package is $6 million worth of work.
as I understand it, we've got a grader in Kilpewan that's not really sitting in the yard looking at us, and it makes it hard for me to convince residents that we've got all their gangs out there working hard when we've got a grader sitting there that's not even.
It's explained that there's
Yeah, I know.
staffing,
But
staffing issues around that.
hard for me to, justify it.
Thank you, John.
Councillor Polly?
I just wonder whether Mr. McGann could give us some commentary around the criteria that defines a flood affected road or not. Obviously, if it goes under, it's flood affected, but if I give an example, at Southside, Macintosh Creek Road and Lawson Road are not flood affected, but they became the major route. So the roads are damaged really bad in the last 12 months. So I would call that flood affected, but they're not. They didn't go underwater. But so do roads like that come into a river package down the track, or they just don't work?
So through you, Mr Mayor, I know that road fairly well, but no, they won't. Macintosh Creek Road was under emergent works.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, with the number of events we continually got on Macintosh Creek Road, the potholes never dried in order for them to be filled. Potentially, so we've had some works done up there only just recently of those dry shoulders that could be repaired, but others could not be repaired because they're simply not in the condition for us to make the repairs.
Just using that as an example of,
Yeah.
are there roads out there that you would consider were flood damaged, but they didn't go underwater, but they were damaged due to external circumstances created by the flood, as in increased traffic?
Correct. So through you, Mr Mayor, we monitor that. We monitor that regularly, and it's not just necessarily roads that are affected by some flood damage that are not necessarily that are higher level roads. It's also those roads that get damaged by, for instance, new subdivisions that create a lot of heavy vehicle movements over those roads. We had recently one up at Groundwater Road where we had to put a significant patch through that road network because of the damage caused by, a one-off event, if you like creating a new subdivision. So we monitor that on a regular basis. So
Mr. McGinn, is that work, that the example of Macintosh Creek Road, is that work covered by REPA or it's not?
It's covered under BAU.
Right. Okay, so question.
Any other, Councillor Stewart?
I guess in terms of staffing and whether we can do both business as usual and weather event works, given we're getting extra money in for the weather event works, then we should be able to surely, if they're available, employ more people or get contractors in to do that work. Because we've got this extra money.
So the statement that you just made, through you, Mr Mayor, the statement Councillor Stewart just made is correct. So there's funding there and there's opportunity there to engage additional resources, but the resources aren't there to engage. So we have a rolling program to recruit plant personnel. That's been ongoing for 6 months. We're still short of plant equipment personnel as well as project management staff to actually manage the projects themselves individually. Where through Mr Evans, we're looking at a different procurement opportunity in order to secure some project management resources in order to drive some of these projects forward. We haven't got those resources in the office at this point in time.
Any other questions, councillors? We have some recommendations there before us. Someone to move? Councillor Milne, someone to second? Councillor Smoot?
I'm happy to resolve to note the minutes of these flood recovery meetings. They are quite informative, and it is really, really frustrating for the community to actually have this process in place. But it's external funding that we're going for. We have to get it right. Everyone's vying for the same stuff, and then there's resourcing issues after that. So it's really difficult sitting in our position. I do echo Councillor Smurden and said we do wear a lot as a councillor at the front face. Why can't we get it quicker? And I have to keep reinforcing exactly this information. So I'm glad these minutes and reports come to us, because it is a process that we have to undertake, and there is nothing we can do to really speed it up. And all I can ask for is that they do report, they do find C stuff, and that they do have patience, because there is a process. So happy to have these. I did note in a previous report about communication strategy for residents and things like that. Maybe that needs to be maybe looked at and put out a little bit more as well from an early minutes and reports that we had got, just to maybe ease some of those frustrations and get the messaging that's in this report that we understand back out to that community, because not everyone reads the minutes.
Councillor
Echo Councillor Milne's sentiments, and happy to second.
Two speakers for the recommendations, any speakers against? No speakers for. Councillor Milne to close.
Happy to move the vote.
With that, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 6.4, Corporate Service Directorate update.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I take that the report is read and I open it up for any questions.
Any questions, councillors? Councillor Jensen?
Trainees, how many trainees? Can I ask how many trainees we have?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll need to take that on notice. I'm not sure a number has been decided as yet.
I think it's great. It's really good.
I tell you, put their hand up for one.
Excellent.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Stewart?
Mr. Mayor, you go to business plan on the page, which I don't think it's a new initiative, but so who completes these plans on page and what's their purpose?
Well, each manager completes the plan on the page, and the purpose is to succinctly deliver to the team, each manager's team, what the plan is for the next 12 months. And part of that is our operational plan, so it allows us to bring focus back to what we've agreed to deliver through the operational plan and other initiatives that the manager sees important for its area and for council.
Any other questions, councillors? The recommendation there before is someone to move. Councillor Milne, someone to second. Councillor Stewart. Councillor Milne to speak.
I absolutely love these directorate updates because they give us a nice overview of what's been happening and what's going on, and we do find some more insights. Highlights for me is the service catalogue, which I'm really excited. Hopefully, we'll be on track for our 23-24, so we can do our bottom up budgeting. So that's going to be great. The employee intranet, over 200 requirements. Obviously, that was feedback from employees. That's a really good engagement from the organisation and make it a better process for everyone. The working from home policy, I see that as something that's come into the organisation, and I personally know people that's really improved their lifestyle because of the flexibility on that. So really happy that's going through. Echo Councillor Jensen about the traineeships initiative coming through. So that's across the department. I'm hoping that's just going to be keep rolling out if we could. Internal communication strategy is something I was really keen about because that's going to reduce our siloing in council, and that's one of the aims that we're really looking at. And the biggest one that I'm really excited about is the $150,000 for an ecotourism officer. To be our placement in council. I am aware of that project, and I think it's actually a really, really exciting initiative that's going to come into this region, and it can really bounce us as an operational as a council, but also as a destination. And it really does tie us across borders with our neighbours as well. So that was one of the biggest standouts for me. So yeah, really loving these reports and happy to note it.
Oh, sorry, Stewart.
I just want to emphasise the Mr. Mayor, the staffing. It seems like each month there seems to be more people coming in than there are leaving. Still a long way to go, but that's at least my interpretation of the figures. And also to reiterate what's sort of already been said in terms of traineeships and what the other word was. But I know it's a disability service, and I expect in any organisation you give opportunities for training and for promotion and for career paths that really helps with employee retention. So it's really good to see the traineeships in, and hopefully we can develop more career pathways. And even if trainees move on to private enterprise or wherever, as council, we have given opportunity to use a local person to develop their skills. I think that's a good thing too.
Two speakers for the recommendation. Any speakers against? Any other speakers for? Councillor Milne to close. That will go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Do one more item 7.1, and then we'll break. GRC authorised biosecurity surveillance program.
Review, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I assume the report's been read. This report is essentially for council to endorse the authorised officers' functions under the Biosecurity Act. It's as simple as that.
Any questions, councillors? Councillor Smith?
How many officers do we actually have that go out in the field?
Currently have 3, and we have 1 vacancy, which is currently under recruitment.
Is under recruitment.
Yep.
Councillor Stewart.
I'm just wondering what level of enforcement can these officers undertake? Can they issue like pins, or is it lower than that, or?
Yeah, yes, through under the Upper Biosecurity Act, they can issue biosecurity orders, entry notices, pins and the like.
Councillor Smead.
Have we done any enforcement lately? My favourite question.
Through the chair, yes, we have. We have issued several biosecurity orders in the last month.
Is there a plan to reinstate the Weeds and Pest Committee?
Yes.
I know that's particularly with rural landholders, very worthwhile committee, a very productive committee that delivers a lot of good results.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there is a second report that talks about biosecurity that will come to the December meeting. That also references the Weeds Committee and the reconstitution of that committee, and work is underway to prepare that.
That'll be well received by the rural landholders in our region. Any other questions, councillors?
Just a clarification, just the general powers in the program here. They're all the general powers under the Act, which is in the thing.
Yes, that's correct.
Cool. That's all. Yeah, because it does outline what they can do. That's quite a lot.
Yes, it is quite a lot. And just to respond to the previous conversation regarding the committee, yeah, absolutely. We want to reinstate that committee. That's been delayed slightly because some of the members we were understanding our constitution and how we need to roll that out. We also want to align that with our biosecurity plan, and I'm looking forward to working with the community on that. And yes, there are quite a number of powers that we can actually exercise.
Councillor Smead.
I recently had an email, can't recall from who at the moment, but regarding wild dog control. Is council still doing that process? Or?
Yes, we are. We don't actually undertake works on private land, but the team have been working with like 1080 and doing training and baiting and releasing that.
Did we ever employ? We used to employ a person from Gomerri. Is there some of that work for us? We don't do that anymore.
We are still doing works on council land, and there's quite a number of programs that we've been working with the state, say Tincan Bay, and a number of like specific properties that we've been working through. The way that we previously did deploy certain activities has unfortunately stalled through some of the arrangements that we've got with council, and we're working I've been working with the team and trying to work out ways that we can make that more equitable and put that out. I guess one of the challenges that we've got is how we equitably deploy council funds to engage pest controllers on private lands, and council has previously been deployed those programs in that particular way, and my understanding is that's not supported by the law. So we have to try and look at ways that we can develop that in the pest animal space. So recently we had a meeting with the White Bay group and DAF and BQ, like Biosecurity Queensland, and that was a very open discussion how we can improve our projects and programs. Round 7 funding's just closing, but we're hoping for round 8 that we will have some projects to try and enhance our presence and equitably build capacity in that space, because pest animals are a very serious problem in our area, and with broader biosecurity impacts such as foot and mouth disease, things like that, which haven't quite made it to our LGA, and we hope that they don't, but things like wild pigs are vectors for a number of disease. So I think it's critical and crucial that as a team and as an organisation we address that particular nuance that we've got and try and work out how we can best support our land, especially our rural landholders in that space.
I think, Stengel, your concerns around ratepayer funds that deliver an outcome to a specific landholder are very much justified. It's a bit of a challenge for you to navigate. I think some of the feedback I've had, and it'd probably be up for the Weed and Pest Committee to consider early on in their inception, is around, particularly around baiting programs, some of the requirements. Are they too onerous? Do we need some flexibility around those requirements to sort of allow landholders a better opportunity to debate. But in my area, wild dogs aren't much as an issue, but the amount of pigs that are coming in is quite alarming. And I have had some concerns raised about our stringent requirements and particularly in relation to neighbours that may be a considerable distance away. But I'm sure that when the committee gets going, that probably will be one of the first things that the people will raise with you. But very good movements forward. Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? We have a recommendation there before us. Someone to move, Councillor Smerdon, someone to second, Councillor Jensen, Councillor Smerdon to speak.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As I've said before, this is a very important role in council as far as I'm concerned. We've got to try and keep our properties clear of all pests and weeds. It just makes economic sense. And if someone needs a bit of a nudge, well, it's up to council to give them that nudge and hopefully the works commence. So I'm happy to move.
Councillor Jensen.
Happy to echo what Councillor Snowden said. It's good to see improvements happening in this space, so that's a good job. Thank you.
2 speakers for the recommendation. Any speakers against? Any other speakers for? Go to the vote. All those sorry, Councillor Smerdon to close.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Just desperate to get you a cup of tea.
Just wondering where that was going. I just like to congratulate Mrs. Stengel. I think she's done a great job in this department and onward and upward. So happy to make.
That will go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. We will adjourn before. Right.
The other day.
7.2, we have a number of declarations to be made. We might start, we'll start this side, Councillor Smith.
Yeah, I just thought I might have a conflict of interest. My fiance works for the show committee, secretary of the show committee, so I have nothing to do with the show. So I just thought I'd put it out there and just get councillors' opinion.
Thank you.